What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the fifth album by rapper Rick Ross. Basically, this project is called God Forgives, I Don't, and it came out in the summer of 2012. So the thing about this particular project is in earlier 2012, basically Rick Ross dropped a hit mixtape, which was called Rich Forever, which I reviewed back in 2015. Pretty good heralded concept to kind of get that particular one. It was Rick Ross definitely on a high, definitely continued his apex years as far as that particular pitch kind of went. But he had a hit album in 2010 called Teflon Don that was definitely an apex as well. Definitely broke Rick Ross further out into the mainstream. I mean, I feel like albums like Trilla and Deeper Than Rap were good, but it was just kind of the concept that they didn't really reach like an apex from as far as his commercial sweet spot did with albums like Teflon Don, the mixtape Rich Forever, and then this particular product, which this was not necessarily to say that this was like Rick Ross's zenith, but it was definitely a pretty sheer popularity. This was when the mixtape grind was at its top of its form as far as that particular pitch kind of happened. You had Meek Mill dropping Dream Chasers 2. You had the Self Made Volume 2 that had just come out. Some pitches like that. Mixtapes were fiery in 2012 as far as that pitch kind of went. Kendrick was getting ready to drop his 2012 album Good Kid, Mad City. Just pitches like that. Just a bunch of good heralded type stuff. Yo Gotti was on his mixtape grind. So it was just Drake was cresting in 2012. There's just a bunch of crested commercial pitches that kind of happened. Rick Ross actually got a charting single off of his 2012 mixtape Rich Forever with Stay Scheming, which is a pretty dope song. And really, I would say if you haven't fucked with Rich Forever by this particular point, I would definitely recommend it because it's a pretty heralded mixtape. Definitely, once again, one of Rick Ross's best projects. But this one is particularly good. I don't know if it's full blown like one of his true best. I definitely feel like albums like Trilla and Port of Miami and Deeper Than Rap are pretty damn good, despite the fact that those were kind of more, not necessarily lukewarm in popularity, but just kind of more, just less casual just within that pitch. I definitely feel like Hustlin' by Rick Ross, The Boss by Rick Ross, some of those type of songs were definitely good, but until he got to like Teflon Don, that was kind of where the commercial fanfare started to happen. Just more kind of widespread, just ubiquitous household name type stuff, I'd have to say. Plus, like the correctional officer type stuff helped. The correctional officer type stuff back in 2008, 2009 sabotaged him along with the beef with 50 Cent, some of those type of things. I mean, maybe the beef with 50 Cent didn't sabotage him, but just kind of it gave him some notoriety, I'd say. So that's the concept about just being able to say. But this is a particular album that has a lot of good amalgamations of styles. It's kind of an evolution of some things. Has some leftover traces of like Deeper Than Rap, has some leftover traces of Teflon Don, and just pitches like that. Has some mixtape fare on here, and it tries some new things. Not all of these things work. There's definitely some soulful songs in here, some pitches like this. It's a good amalgamation of a lot of styles. So it's just kind of the concept that somehow this album just feels like a shade weaker. I would, especially compared to Rick Ross's first three albums, and then even like the Triple C's album. Now, I would have to say that just based upon this particular concept, that this is a good album. It's just not going to get like a 9.5, 10 out of 10. I'd have to suppose that this is like, so there's a patch of song. Particularly, there's a patch of songs that just don't do that well, and there's just some lengthier ones on here. Rick Ross just has a lot lengthier verses on this particular project, some longer songs that just don't always stretch into like the perfect time, that just don't always stretch into like the perfect kind of territory as far as that amalgamation kind of happens. I feel like this is about as good. I feel like it has the quality like Teflon Don, but it's just kind of the concept that Rick Ross does not full blown capitalize on drill rap. I kind of feel like even by the summer of 2012, drill rap was starting to die down a bit compared to the pitch and apex that it had back in 2010 and 2011. This is kind of a different concept because originally God Forgives I Don't was supposed to come out in 2011, but it got delayed. I want to say Rick Ross had some seizures in 2011 from drinking lean and pitches like that. So it's kind of the concept it got delayed. But it's kind of the concept the tides had kind of shifted. Folks like Slim Duncan had kind of died, and the mixtape grind had kind of died down a little bit. This was not quite as fiery as it was in 2011. I mean, definitely you had Meek Mill's Dream Chasers 2 and the pitches like that. Some other 2012 mixtapes. Trying to think of some other ones like Trinidad James and some of those type folks, but comparatively to 2010, 2011 to 2012, 2013, the mixtape grind was starting to kind of simmer a little bit. It's just kind of the concept. But so Rick Ross doesn't full blown focus on like drill rap this time like he did on Teflon Don. It's just kind of a different apex just because he tried some different styles. This was the kind of era 2012, 2013 was where folks started relying on a lot of hook artists more so than just crafting like songs on their own, like, with Rick Ross's Hustlin' or one of those type ones, or Push It to the Limit, some of those type ones. Rick Ross has like a song with Drake on here, a song with Elijah Blake on here, a song with Omarion on here, some song with Usher on here, just some R&B type songs to kind of get within that relative pitch. And it's just kind of the concept that was what the sound was starting to shift to in terms of singles. It was just more R&B related, Drake type songs and Trey songs type songs and those type pitches, Usher type songs as far as that kind of went. But there's not really an EDM Rick Ross song. That's one trend that Rick Ross didn't capitalize on was EDM. It's just kind of the concept. You get a little bit of drill rap on here, just a bunch of styles, but we'll get towards it so you know what I'm talking about. But basically, there were 4 singles off this particular project. This album really was not that much of a commercial smash, I'd say, compared to like the sleeper and left field popularity of Teflon Don. I'd have to say this was kind of a more lambent type album. I'd have to say in particular, but I still respect the concept of it. I'd also say that Rich Forever was probably a bigger album as well. It's just kind of the concept. I mean, Rick Ross managed to close out like the trinity of Rick Ross managed to close out the heralded trilogy of albums with this particular one, but it's just kind of the concept that it's just not quite as full blown compared to Teflon Don and Rich Forever. I'd say it was not to say this is a bad project. It's definitely going to get a rather high score. But Touching You is the first single. This has Usher on the hook. It's like a steamy kind of summer activity haze of a song. I'd have to say it's like a good finesse time. So I would definitely feel like the concept of just being out and about in like a more just being out and about in a more ladies oriented type fashion. I'd have to say definitely an evolution of Deeper Than Rap days. I'd have to say in particular. And this is a pretty glossy song. So if you miss like the Deeper Than Rap spices songs like Bossy Lady, some of those type pitches, Yacht Club, some of those type ones, and some of those songs with like Magnificent with John Legend, some of those type pitches, just kind of an evolution of that particular type era. I like some of the remnants of Deeper Than Rap kind of being on here. It's just kind of the concept. It works pretty well. Too bad this song didn't chart heavier. It's just kind of the concept. I do appreciate the concept of this particular song. It's a real nice banner type song from Rick Ross to kind of get around this time. It's kind of underappreciated, I'd say in particular. It's kind of one that doesn't always get like the fanfare as far as that particularly kind of goes. It's kind of a forgotten about Rick Ross song, especially the fact that it's from 2012, just the aspect of where that was kind of a good year for Rick Ross, but maybe paying attention to different songs like So Sophisticated and Stay Scheming, I'd have to say this is kind of the concept about it. But So Sophisticated is the second single. This has Meek Mill on there. I'd have to say it's like a jazzy kind of electro rendition of drill rap. I'd have to say in particular, has a real red hot beat. I would definitely have to say in particular, it's like a good early 2010s contemporary hit. I'd have to say, and it's very energizing. So it's a pretty excellent concept to get about that particular song. Some real good nightclub spice as far as that particular kind of goes. It's a real amalgamated type song that this is a lot of good electricity and fun just about it, I suppose. Meek Mill's on the song. He contributes pretty well to it. Just another good concept. These are the sort of songs that Meek Mill was on, just with like songs like Burn and some of those type ones that he was doing in 2012. So Meek Mill is definitely pretty red hot in 2012 as far as that pitch come up. This is just another example of a classic kind of Rick Ross and Meek Mill kind of team up, I'd have to say. Really, I mean, it's just a good evolution of like the drill rap type sound. So if you like Teflon Don, Rick Ross, this is a good evolution of that. It's a real kind of energizing Rick Ross type hit to kind of get around this time, but it just didn't chart as heavily either. It's just kind of the concept. I don't know why Rick Ross had kind of phased out by this particular point, because this was kind of him in his prime era. This was supposed to be like his commercial breakout, where he was going to be household name type territory, but then it just didn't really amalgamate into that. This is kind of the thing. But Hold Me Back was the third single. This is another drill rap type song. This is a more vintage drill rap type fire, I'd have to say. This definitely reminds me of MC Hammer from Teflon Don, I'd have to say. It's like mixtape Ross and some spicy nightclub shit, I'd have to say in particular. And this is just an overall pretty hot song. So I definitely appreciate this particular concept. It's a real nice one. Takes it back to like Teflon Don era Rick Ross as far as that particularly kind of goes. Just some excellent type stuff to kind of get. Real nice drill rap kind of club type song, I'd have to say in particular. The thing about Rick Ross on this particular album is he doesn't really overextend like the drill rap type sound. He realizes that it's probably pretty white hot as far as the particular kind of went, but I don't even know if white hot's the correct term. It might be red hot that's the correct term, just because it was definitely fiery, but it just kind of felt like it had served its purpose as folks like Waka Flocka and Slim Duncan and Gucci Mane had kind of started to phase out of that particular song. And the mixtape type fare was just not quite as heavily torched as it was back in 2011 and 2010 as far as that pitch kind of went along with it. It's not to say it's bad. I mean, these are definitely good songs, but they just almost feel not necessarily washed up, but they just kind of feel like yesteryear just within that apex as far as that kind of goes. Just even talking about like the summer of 2012 as far as that kind of went, they just kind of feel like yesteryear type product as far as that kind of goes. But they're good songs. They're definitely good. It just kind of feels like 5 minutes ago territory as far as that kind of goes along with it. But at least for 2012, I'd have to say summer of 2012. That's kind of the pitch behind it. But Diced Pineapples is the fourth single. This has Wale and Drake on there. Pretty good concept for that. It's like a hazy kind of romantic evening fare, I'd have to say. Some dinner music and composed kind of social snaz about this song, I'd have to say in particular. And this is just good for like a relaxed evening. So this is a pretty nice one. There's definitely some wine and dine type stuff just within the relative pitch of just a romantic evening as far as that particular kind of goes along with it. Just basic kind of relaxation, summer evenings pitch, just like that, I'd suppose. Drake has another pretty nice hook on here. Maybe not as good as like the one he did. Actually, I'd say the hook on this particular song, Dice Pineapples, competes with Aston Martin music. I'd have to say in particular. That one, Aston Martin music is a little bit more commercial snap. I'd have to say in particular, but this is definitely pretty glossy and romantic type one. That's definitely not to be ignored. It's a little bit more hardcore, just within a sense, but definitely a casual kind of just more romantic type fare. I'd have to say in particular, it's just a nice one. This one just has a little bit more spark of just like intense type feeling that has suppose in particular, but I do feel like Aston Martin music's probably the more commercial type one, the one that you probably more hear on the radio and pitches like that. But this is definitely good for some romantic type fare. I do like the intro from Wally on here in particular, just a real nice one. So that's the basic concept of the promotion of this particular album. I just would have to say some definite nice stuff. So I'm not gonna review the deluxe edition on this particular album because unfortunately Rick Ross just dropped two songs that were also on the Rich Forever mixtape, which is basically just the Triple Beam Dreams and then the song with John Legend, which I think was called Rich Forever, something like that. So I would just recommend getting the Rich Forever mixtape because they're just on there and you just are paying extra dollars for those particular two songs. I definitely feel like Rick Ross should have added a few more songs. So it's just kind of the concept about it as far as that particular kind of goes. So, but basically, there's 14 songs on this particular project. And out of those 14, I wound up recommending to you 10. So the 10 songs I recommend on here would be Touching You, So Sophisticated, Hold Me Back, Diced Pineapples, Amsterdam, 911 or 911, 911, Presidential, 10 Jesus Pieces, Ice Cold, and Pirates. So talk about some of these. Basically, Amsterdam's a pretty nice, and it's definitely one of the best songs on this particular album. I'd have to say in particular, it's like a very exceptional kind of soulful Ross cut. I'd have to say in particular, it's like a great smoke a few kind of elegant hotel type music. I'd have to say in particular, some great stuff for that. And this is just good for like some gussied up kind of outings. I'd have to say this is a pretty nice one. This is like Rick Ross in a more elegant type fare, just within that fashion. Definitely an evolution of the stuff that he was doing on Teflon Don and Deeper Than Rap. I'd have to say it's a more just a better and more polished rendition of that particular type of song. When you think of songs like Super High and some of those type ones, some of those type pitches where Rick Ross kind of did, it's just a lot more evolutional type one. I'd have to say this definitely feels like something you could listen to in Amsterdam, smoke a blunt, some pitches like that. Great song to smoke to. I definitely have to say in particular, there's some excellent type stuff to smoke, some switchers, pitches like that. Just kind of kick back and steam a blunt, some of those type pitches as far as that kind of goes. Great elegant type music. The thing about this particular song is it's also some pretty glossy hotel type music. So if you're just kind of in wanderlust and travel type mode and just kind of going to hotels, going throughout hotels and motel, maybe not so much motels, but just elegant hotels, places where there'd be waterfalls, pitches like that. Just more kind of marble floor, expensive pitches like that. It's definitely a pretty excellent type song. 9 911 is another pitch type one. This definitely another drill rap type song. Definitely get on here. It's a good concept for that. It's like a stellar kind of mixtape edginess of a song. I'd have to say in particular, it's like a good glossy drill rap nightclub roar of a song. I'd have to say in particular, this one definitely gets things started. I'd have to say, and this is just some basic kind of turn ups. This is another nice one. Unfortunately, there's only really 3 drill rap type songs on here. It's just kind of the pitch behind it. I think Rick Ross realized that the drill rap type song was starting to die down compared to how it was in like 2010 with Teflon Don. So it's this kind of concept. You get 3 good ones on here, but it's definitely a good taste because it's the fact that Rick Ross definitely needed some more turn up touch songs. This is really not much of like a nightclub kind of album. There's definitely songs like So Sophisticated, Hold Me Back, and 911, but I just feel like the concept, if you're looking for like a classic club type song from Rick Ross, like Hustlin' or Push It to the Limit, some pitches like that, doesn't really have that. There's not a ton of social pizzazz. There's not a ton of social pizzazz as far as stepping out to nightclubs and dance club type songs and pitches like that. The ringtone rap era, Rick Ross has since gone. There's definitely some good ladies songs on here, but in terms of like some dance club and just nightlife, I'd have to say it's not particularly that much of like an emphatic type one. You get 3 drill rap type songs, but that's for the most part the good amount of outings that there really is. The social score might dip a little bit, but I would have to say there's definitely some good pizzazz. Another good example of like a lady song that's on here, just like Touching You and Diced Pineapples, I'd have to say would be Presidential. This is like an elegant kind of vacay type music, I'd have to say, in like a sophisticated sense, I would definitely suppose. This is definitely like an evolution of Deeper Than Rap Days, that I suppose. Once again, this is just some good summer fun. Definitely appreciate this one. Just a good combination with like Touching You, I'd say definitely some good day type fare to kind of get for like some standard day outings, just within that relative pitch, just within a romantic sense. This one's a little bit more frivolous, not quite as romantic as like Diced Pineapples is, but it is a pretty nice one to kind of get here. And then another nice lady song that has another hook artist on there. Oh yeah, Presidential has Elijah Blake, which he's a pretty good hook artist. Definitely recommend checking out some of his stuff. Despite, I mean, he never really blew up like that. He was just big in like 2012, 2013. But I still would have to say he probably has like a mixtape or two, something like that. But Ice Cold's a pretty nice one. That was back when Omarion was signed to Maybach Music, pitches like like that. It's a pretty nice song. It's like a jazzy kind of date night flash of a song I'd have to say in particular. It's definitely some 2010s promo outings I'd have to suppose in particular. Just a 2010s rendition like promo type songs as far as that particular flash kind of goes. Not just for 2000 type fare, but also 2010 type fare to kind of get some of this pretty good concept of just dressed to impress type fare just with some snazziness. It's definitely like a social evening kind of snap of a song I had to say in particular. And this is just some good living, enjoying. And the song is just some good living, kind of enjoying commerce it has to suppose in particular. Definitely a grateful type song just to kind of get in particular, just appreciating the sides pitches like that, just some wanderlust, just within a relative outing type sense of just being out and about, just within like the standard date activity, just pitches like that, just appreciating restaurants, appreciating like the flash of just going out and about, going to like a square, some pitches like that, some of those type fairs, just standard pizzazz. It just not necessarily, and it doesn't have to necessarily be like a smokish type song or something like that. Just pretty much like standard sober type living, just within the pitch of just some standard outings and just appreciating like day commerce as far as that pitch kind of goes. Not a super ton of smoking songs on here either. Rick Ross really wasn't drinking and smoking that much on this particular album. I'd say minus Amsterdam and maybe like a song like So Sophisticated. A lot of these songs are not like full blown smoking songs, but one song that would be another smoking song would be 10 Jesus Pieces that I'd say in particular. It's like a suave kind of social. The song is like a suave kind of soulful pizzazz of a song that I'd say in particular. It's like a good evolution of like early 2010s Rick Ross songs like Deeper, songs like Cigar Music and Rich Off Cocaine, some of those type pitches, some of those type days, super high between Deeper Than Rap and Teflon Don Rick Ross. I'd say in particular. It's like Ross, definitely some early 2010s Rick Ross to appreciate as far as that particular pitch kind of goes. And this is just an appreciate the times kind of song and just definitely a good one to smoke to, I'd have to say in particular. So this is definitely a soulful type one. Maybe not as emphatic as Amsterdam, but definitely a pretty close one just to get within that relative context that I'd say just another relatively pretty damn just another relatively pretty damn good one to kind of get within that relative sense. This pretty reminds me also of Maybach music too from Deeper Than Rap. But I'd say just some good pitches just within that relative sense. Saxophones playing pitches like that. It's a real suave and soulful type one to kind of get here. Stolly's on this particular song. Haven't fucked with him in a good while. I'm gonna have to get back to some of his type stuff. But I'd say it was just a good concept. Kind of have some of this emphasis to some of these type ones. Just some more hotel type music and just graceful kind of outing type fare. I'd have to say definitely goes good with Amsterdam and Diced Pineapples. I'd have to say within that relative mixture. And then the surprising song on here that I wasn't expecting to enjoy. I didn't like this song as much back in the day, but this song is Pirates. This is a pretty nice one. This one definitely reminds me of like Port of Miami days from Rick Ross, which is kind of surprising just because I wouldn't expect him to go back to those particular type times. This is kind of like an evolution of 2000s Rick Ross, I'd have to say in particular. And this is like a pretty standard and vanilla. And this song is just some pretty standard and vanilla kind of hot day commerce, I'd have to say in particular. So it's definitely good for like a hot June or July day. Some pitches like that as far as that particular kind of goes along with it. Just some standard fare for like summer living as far as that pitch kind of goes. It's just a pretty basic song. It's the concept about it just reminds me of like a song like Hustlin', just without like the mammoth hook and single type variation as far as that particular kind of goes. Just a standard album cut that just does its purpose, but it's just kind of a basic type song. No real pizzazz about it. It's not really like a drinking, smoking song's a pitch like that. Not really like a nightclub song. Not really like a lady song. It's a basic kind of standard rap type song. This kind of concept, this song is just so vanilla. That's kind of the pitch behind it. I feel like Three Kings is a worse variation of Pirates. I feel like Three Kings is a worse variation of Pirates. I don't recommend Three Kings of Pirates. It was just the basic type song to kind of get here. That this is for like some standard kind of summer living, just in like a hot day kind of sense. Just a very vanilla song, but I liked it. So that's just kind of the concept just about it. But really not a smoking song. Like I said, Rick Ross was not really as much in drug use on this particular album. Not really as much a recreational type project and that sort of fanfare. I mean, it's recreational, but just kind of more sober type living pitches like that. So, but yeah, to talk about the four songs I didn't recommend on here, basically Three Kings, Ashamed, Maybach Music 4, and 16. Two of these songs, Maybach Music 4 and 16, are just some lengthier type ones. I wish that Maybach Music 4 would have had like a standard song format. It just feels like Rick Ross dropped a real long rap verse and then put Neo on there like once as far as that pitch kind of went. Just really didn't like all the emphasis. Just didn't really like all the super emphasis of this particular song. It's a little bit overly dramatic. I do like the Maybach music's being dramatic within a sense, but this one was just really super primed up as far as that kind of went. This wasn't as nearly engaging as those Maybach musics normally are, I'd have to say. 16 with Andre 3000 was just too lengthy a song. I wasn't really trying to listen to like an 8-minute type song. It was just one that didn't really have an engaging production on top of that. I suppose was just kind of a poor type one that I just couldn't really get into like that. Ashamed just really had a poor sample. Shame just really had like a poor sample on there. Just really didn't appreciate that one. That was another poor production on there that just was really not that engaging. I suppose it was just kind of one that I was kind of surprised was even on this particular project. Just the quality part on this particular song was just not up to snuff for normal Rick Ross compared to a lot of songs on here like "Hold Me Back," "So Sophisticated," "Diced Pineapples," "Amsterdam," some of those type ones, even "Pirates" and "Touch and You," some of those type ones. That just felt like this one was kind of subpar. I'd say just kind of a lousy type one. And then kind of a disappointing one on here was Three Kings. I mean, this one kind of has like a similar fashion to Pirates, like I was saying, just another kind of summer bounce of a song, just within that relative basic and vanilla type sense. But I was just kind of disappointed by the production type fare of this. It really felt like a standard kind of summer day as far as that production pitch kind of went along with it. And Dr. Dre and Jay-Z dropping a song on here. This is one of the most basic songs I've heard Jay-Z on in a long while, especially out of the 2010s when he was like a multi-millionaire, easily worth like 100, 200 million, some pitches like that as far as that particularly kind of went. Same thing with Dr. Dre. It was just kind of awkward type one to hear Dr. Dre kind of on. Definitely not a song I'd like to hear him on that much. It was really just one that was just a poor one overall from all three parties involved. It was just kind of I definitely feel like if you're going to get Dr. Dre and Jay-Z on a song, it definitely needs to be leagues better than this particular one as far as that kind of one. It was just a very basic type song just in that sense that just didn't have a lot of good emphasis. So that's the basic concept about it. So me recommending 10 songs out of 14 on this particular album. I'm going to go ahead and give this album like an 8.5 out of 10. Definitely pretty good, but I was expecting to probably give this album like a little bit higher of a score. I definitely feel like the emphasis and the overall amalgamation of all the styles that Rick Ross tried on this particular project was pretty damn excellent. Full of soulful songs, full of ladies songs, full of drill rap type songs, mixtape type favorite pitches like that, and just some overall just fun pizzazz and just some other type moments that kind of work pretty damn well. Soulful stuff like that. I think as it's soulful, but you get the idea. Just stuff like that. But I just kind of feel like some of these new styles that Rick Ross tried to try on here, just trying to get some new strengths as far as that pitch kind of went, just didn't really work out that well. Songs like Three Kings, Ashamed, and 16 were all some awkward type ones where I just questioned what Rick Ross was really trying to do as far as that particular kind of went. I mean, he didn't have this problem on Deeper Than Rap. He didn't have Rick Ross didn't have this problem with Deeper Than Rap or Teflon Don or even Port of Miami or Trill as far as that particular pitch kind of happened. It was just kind of some awkward tangents that just didn't add up to much and probably shouldn't have been on the album. I know he probably could have replaced it with like another drill rap song, another song like Touch and You, some pitches like that, another song like 9/11, some of those type pitches, and definitely another song like Amsterdam, I would have said in most of the assured sense. But it's just kind of concept. Maybach Music 4 was definitely a pretty big disappointment just in terms of concept, but just the emphasis. Maybe there should have been a guest on there. Maybe it shouldn't have been as sprawling as supposed to. This kind of concept that some of this is just some decorum on there that just didn't add up to things. Don't know why Rick Ross put a song like 16 on that particular album, especially in 8 minutes. Just didn't really seem to add up to much, but it's this kind of thing. The social score, though, that's kind of tricky. I think I'm going to give the social score like a 9. I'm going to give the social score like a 9.25 out of 10 because I feel like there is some social snap on here. Definitely all three of the drill rap songs are pretty party starters just within that relative pitch. There's some soulful, smoking type songs on here like Amsterdam and 10 Jesus Pieces. I'd have to say there's definitely a good batch of lady songs that I'd suppose, including some romantic type ones that I'd say in particular. The singles are all pretty heavy hitters that I'd suppose in particular. There's some good moments, even some kind of summer haze type moments like Pirates. And if you do appreciate the fact that Dr. Dre and Jay-Z on a song, you might like also Three Kings as well. So it does have some summer haze, some summer just outings as far as that particularly kind of goes, just some concepts like that. But yeah, for the most part, it's damn near a classic in terms of like the social type fare. But I just would have to say, in terms of like the regular execution, I just kind of feel like there just were a batch of awkward type songs on here that just didn't amount to much in terms of that. I mean, it's not to say it's a full blown disappointment, but just kind of a surprise as far as that kind of went. Just with Rick Ross trying to put some songs on here just to get some new strengths that just didn't work that well. But in terms of the future, like Rick Ross dropped an album in November 2023 with Meek Mill. He dropped a collaboration album with Meek Mill as far as that pitch went. And he's probably working. I remember Rick Ross dropping the album title of like his next album that's going to come out in either 2024 or 25, either in 2024 or 2025. I don't remember what it's called, but I suppose it's out there if you look around for it. I suppose, but I'm definitely going to get to some more Rick Ross. I do want to review Mastermind as far as that particular pitch kind of goes. So I'm going to get to that one next and pitches like that. But it's definitely pretty above average Rick Ross album. Definitely has some good social pizzazz about it, and just a lot of good day and that. Definitely has a lot of good day and date night type commerce, I'd have to suppose in particular. So some pretty snazzy stuff I'd have to say, and it's definitely a good Rick Ross album. Definitely above average, I'd have to say, and I do recommend it.